Good morning and welcome to the January Pre-State Allocation Board meeting. I'm Barbara Kampminer with the Office of Public School Construction, and beside me is Sue Reese, also with the Office of Public School Construction. Today we'll be highlighting some of the items that will be on today's agenda at the State Allocation Board meeting and addressing any questions that might come up. So, to get started, one of the action items that you will see at today's meeting is the regulatory amendments for non-participation in the priority funding process. Now, this is a conforming item that is a result of the board's action in October 2012 to address those projects that have been on the unfunded approvals list but have not been requesting their fund releases through the priority funding process. The board decided that in order to keep the cash moving and to address the need of bond authority that may not be actually needed for projects, by developing a mechanism so that if school districts choose not to participate more than one time in the priority funding process, they will be rescinded. Now, for the purposes of these regulations, the term rescind means that the project will actually be removed from the unfunded approvals list. The unfunded approval will be rescinded, and the pupil grants will be returned to the school district's baseline eligibility. So the project will no longer have approval. If the district decides to pursue this project again at a later date, it will need to be resubmitted. Now, the chart that you see on your screen there, or if you've downloaded the presentation, describes a couple different ways that a school district could end up being rescinded from the unfunded approvals lists. There is basically a one-skip option. School districts have one opportunity in which they can pass on the priority funding process without any penalty. Now, what is considered in this first occurrence is two things. First, if a school district does not submit a request to participate, that counts as one of the passes. Now, if a school district does submit a request to participate and receives an apportionment but fails to submit the fund release document in time, that also counts as one skip. Now, after the first time that a school district fails to submit a fund release, they do still fall under the normal regulations, which would return that project to the bottom of the unfunded approvals list, and they will have another opportunity to participate in priority funding. But on the second occurrence, the second time that priority funding is available, that district must participate, must request the funds, and submit the fund release request in order for the apportionment to not be rescinded. So if a school district fails to do that two times, then the apportionment will be rescinded and the project will be removed off the list. And it can be any combination of those two things. So a school district can choose to skip the process twice and the project will be rescinded. A school district can submit for a fund release and, submit a request and receive an apportionment but fail to submit a fund release twice and the apportionment will be rescinded. Or it can be a combination of the two different occurrences. Now, the regulations are going to the board, and the board's action in October specifically excluded the charter school facility program projects as well as the career technical educational facility program projects. So those types of projects will be under the past regulations. They will not be subject to rescission as a new construction or a modernization project would. And those regulations will be presented to the board today, and we will be requesting that the board authorize the executive officer to file these regulations on an emergency basis. And if they're approved, we will keep everybody informed about when they go into effect so that districts will have plenty of notice and be able to prepare and time their requests accordingly. Now, the next item that I'd like to talk about is the options for execution of the 2013 grant amounts. Now, there are actually two items on the agenda that deal with the grant amounts for 2013. In the consent portion of the agenda, the board is being asked to adopt the increase for the M&S 8 California cities, which is 3.13% this year. So the 2013 grant amounts are increasing. That will be done in the consent portion of the agenda, and that will apply to all projects that receive approvals beginning January 2013 and moving forward through the rest of the year. Now, the item that you see in the action items that's called the options for execution of the 2013 grant amounts, That item is in the event that the board wishes to apply the increase to projects that have already received approvals or have already been placed on the unfunded list. So the consent item takes care of things moving forward. The options for applying the grant amounts takes care of anything that the board may wish to do for those projects that have already received an unfunded approval. Now, historically, the board has applied this adjustment prospectively. It's only been for projects that are in the year that the grant increase is adopted, with the exception of 1 year, and that 1 year was following a decrease, and the board wanted the flexibility to be able to go back and adjust those projects so that if they were still on the unfunded list, that it would sort of match up to the bid conditions at the time. So with the exception of that 1 year when they went back and applied this increase to that batch of projects, typically this moves forward, the grant increase moves forward with projects in the year that the increase is adopted. Now, if the board did decide to apply this increase to those projects on the unfunded approval list, there would be a need for additional bond authority up to the amount of $24.6 million, depending on which category of projects the board is considering. Now, this would require bond authority, and I'm sure as many of you have been following, the bond authority for the program has in effect been exhausted. We have sufficient applications in-house to use up all of the remaining bond authority. So applying this grant increase to the unfunded approvals that are already on the unfunded approvals list would mean that fewer projects would be able to be processed inside bond authority. They would end up, some projects would end up outside of bond authority. The board has many options. There are a number of different ways that this grant increase could be applied. The options that are laid out in the staff analysis would give the board the ability to apply this increase to any of the projects that received an unfunded approval between 2009 and 2012. And the second option deals with the unfunded list. And the unfunded list are those projects that are outside of bond authority but were approved, processed fully to the board and approved back in December, so the board could consider that as well. The staff recommendation on this is that no adjustments be made to any project added to the list of unfunded approvals or unfunded list prior to January 2013. So the staff recommendation is just to keep with the consent item and apply this adjustment moving forward, and that is largely due to the fact that we just do not have any bond authority remaining to make these adjustments without it impacting other projects that are in line. So we'll see how that goes. That will be up to the board. And then there are two additional items in the action items section that I wanted to touch on today. It's the selection of the chair and the vice chair. When the rules and operating procedures for the State Allocation Board were adopted, it was determined that the board will elect a chair and vice chair to serve a 2-year term. Now, the chair must be a member of the administration or an agency designee, so basically that would be the representative from the Department of Finance, representative from the Department of General Services, the governor's appointee, or the representative from the state superintendent. And the vice chair option must be a legislative member. So the board will be taking those items up to nominate and elect both a chair and a vice chair at today's meeting. With that, are there any questions on the items that I've covered so far? Okay, then I'll turn it over to Sue.
Good morning. This chart represents the funds that are currently available and what we've released from the period of October through December. We did not have a November board, and with that, we've released approximately $9.6 million. As a reminder, your 5005s that have been approved in the last priorities of funding round are due in March, so get them in. This chart depicts the remaining bond authority for all the programs that are available. In totality, we have about $551.2 million remaining. As you can see, as the chart goes down, we have money pretty much in almost all the programs left, or authority left in the programs. Again, for a grand total of 551.2. With that, are there any questions? CDE was not able to make it today, so with that.
He's on his way.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if we can take a quick recess, maybe. I don't know.
We understand that they're on their way, so if we could take a quick recess. We'll be back with you shortly. Thank you.
A couple things before I got into the slideshow, which isn't mine. There we go. Just a couple things going on. The Governor's Office of Planning and Research has an event on January 28th where they're talking about zero-emission vehicles, ZEVs. And that may be of interest as the goal is to get 1.5 million ZEVs on the road. So that may be a factor you need to look at in your design of schools, whether the charging stations, use of your district vehicles. So again, that's January 28th. You can look at the Office of Planning and Research webpage. Some more opportunities with the Integrated Pest Management Workshops, IPM. That is through the Department of Pesticide Regulation and the Healthy Schools Act, which details a lot of the notifications when applying pesticides at schools. So they have 4 events coming up. March 1st at Antioch High School, April 4th at Brawley High School, June 12th at Templeton High School, and August 8th at Eureka High School. So check out the DPR webpage on those. And then also DPR has turf grass workshops focusing specifically on the maintenance and use of pesticides on turf grass. So take a look at that. Let's see. And then finally, before I get into the show, there was a study that came out in England that did some correlations between building conditions and student achievement. And in summary, what they found was that from the worst to the best designed classrooms found that there was a full year of student achievement between the two. So you can read, that was an article by Jonathan Nettler in the Architecture, Education, and Careers, and looking for their webpage. It's published in the Wired UK publication on January 3rd, 2013, called School Design May Affect a Child's Grade. So you can read more about that as to see the role that the built environment does play in achievement. So what I want to talk about today in the slideshow was crime prevention through environmental design, CPTED. This is a multidisciplinary approach. It's been around about 30 years. And they're looking at preventing crime from happening through the use of architectural, landscaping strategies. So to go through natural surveillance is one of the principles. The see and be seen. The more likely someone is to perhaps be seen committing crime, the less likely they are to commit that. So a couple examples here that we have looking at how landscaping would affect that. You see on the left you have some trees that are very full and branching around the very low branching, obstructing supervision. And on the right, although it's difficult to see, there is one lone tree out there in the playground, but it has a high crown. So it doesn't obstruct that much of the vision of the play field. So that's something to think about. Here's another version of that, where you have the high crowns in the trees, the wide walkways, and the low shrubbery against the building, so there's no opportunity to hide behind that. So you have ample circulation space with clear lines of sight. Okay. So and this shows also a good example of how this is a compatible design with education. It doesn't look oppressive, doesn't look prison-like. It is using some architectural elements to enhance the security, while not taken away from the educational aspects. Here's another example. You can see at the convergence of those lines, one person could stand there and supervise pretty much all of the play field. Now when the decision comes to put more portables on, you can see by placing them there that you have obstructed a good portion of the play field. So keeping in mind the CPTED principles and the need to supervise when looking at placing additional buildings, maybe this alignment gives you better supervision. Now, of course, you have taken all the other considerations in the design, but putting safety and security at the forefront of the design may help you make some decisions that will make the daily operation of the school safer. Natural surveillance inside. The classroom size, whether it's the 960 classroom or the 1,350 square foot kindergarten, allows the teacher to able to supervise as well as to respond to a situation in the back of the room without having to trip over backpacks and going through the desks. So you can see an example here of far too many kids in a small space. Okay. Natural access control. So this is the use of fencing and signage to direct, in this case, visitors to the administration office to check in. Okay, so there are limited and controlled accesses to the school. Territorial reinforcement. So this is creating the sphere of influence, so that area beyond the school, next to it, creating a sense of proprietorship that this is a public area. It's used by the community, not just a school. And maintenance, the broken window theory, that once one window is broken, the theory goes, it's an invitation to break other windows, which leads to further vandalism. So constant and on-time maintenance will help to keep the buildings looking like they're safe and will be safe. So, and you can see here how those principles align with the Title V requirements of natural surveillance on buildings and do not impair supervision, classroom square footage, and supervision of playfields. Showed some examples of that. Natural access control, fencing, drop-off points, territorial reinforcement. The community spaces are near the perimeter of the building, of the site, so you can secure the rest of the site while maintaining the public spaces open to the general public. And maintenance. Schools should require a minimum of maintenance. So those are the basics of the CPTED principles, and we have other research on our webpage about safe schools. You can see the link there. And there are other resources at the department working with our safe school planning checklist, and these are a lot of operational things, design of the fire drills, the earthquake drills, how to respond to crisis. And there are also other resources. LA Unified has a very comprehensive web page on a wide range of safety and security issues. CalEMA and Homeland Security also have some resources you can look at in the design of schools and the development of safety plans. So I think that's all I have. So that's it. All right. Well, goodbye.